Welcome to the Let's Talk Tying the Knot stage. I am Beth Forsyth, editor of Tie the Knot Scotland magazine. You can pick up a copy down at the bottom corner there, or indeed come and see us on stand 428F up near the catwalk. I'm joined on stage by two Scottish wedding celebrants from Fuze Ceremonies, Paul Browett and Mary Docherty. Fuze, just to tell you a bit about Fuze Ceremonies, they were established in 2012 and they're a not-for-profit humanist organisation with a team of over 50 professional celebrants conducting humanist wedding, funeral and naming ceremonies across Scotland. They'll be sharing everything you need to know about the ceremony, from legalities and time frame to symbolic gestures and vows. Over to you, Paul and Mary.
That's much better. Hello everyone, sorry for the technical issues there. So yes, as Beth mentioned, we are Fuze Ceremonies and we are humanist celebrants. So a lot of people ask what the difference between a humanist and a celebrant is. Well, we're technically marriage officers, and what that allows us to do is conduct all of the legal paperwork on the day. So not only do you have a nice personal, fun, relaxed ceremony, you also get to conclude your wedding from start to finish with us. So we're going to tell you a little bit about how we do that. Should the clicker work? Okay, let's talk the legal bit, Mary.
So, are we going to talk about the forms? Yeah, so one of our jobs is to help you with the paperwork on the day. So there's the aspect of going to get your forms beforehand. So we're going to keep you right with where to put the forms, when the dates are. The minimum date is 29 days before your ceremony, and the latest is 3 months before your ceremony. So one of our jobs is to be on the ball, giving you advice as to what you need, what documentation you need, where the forms need to be submitted, and you'll probably find that we're pretty much on your case all the time, because if you don't have the legal documentation sorted out, then it becomes a very expensive big party. So you're not actually going to be legally married on the day unless you have everything in place. So you'll find that that's our top priority beforehand, is getting the legal part sorted out for you and giving you the best advice. Sometimes things are a bit more complicated if someone's been married before or had a death of a spouse before. So again, we're always saying the earlier the better you can put your forms in, and that's the best advice we can give you.
Yeah, so it's fair to say we have weddings every single day. You guys are going to have one wedding for the rest of your life. So that's where we come in. So we're the experts. Ask the questions and feel comfortable in asking us anything that you need to know. So things like your witnesses, for example, that can be anyone in that ceremony space who's over the age of 16. It doesn't have to be the traditional aspect of having like a best man or a maid of honour, for example. So that's a nice way of including other people in the ceremony. So you can have a think about who those two witnesses may be. So Mary, let's talk about the cost. That's what everyone wants to know. How much is it? So
the legal cost, the documentation would be £70. That's paid directly to the registry office. Are we going to talk about the cost for our services, or?
I'm sure that question may come up at the end, so we can cover that at the end.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so what we're all here for, creating your ceremony script. Now, the big difference in having a humanist celebrant is making sure that your ceremony is relaxed and personal, and most importantly, reflective of you as a couple. So what we like to do, or certainly every one of our celebrants, is very different in what we offer. So with my ceremonies, I'm a huge believer in that being where the fun begins, not the boring bit before the party. So I like to make sure from start of the day to finish, everyone's having a great time. And how we do that in creating your ceremony script is finding out your story of how you met, how you fell in love. Ladies, let's be honest, maybe the reasons you don't love about one another but you put up with anyway. And sometimes that list is actually longer, right? But most importantly, why we're there, okay? And it's making sure that we're talking to your guests and involving as many people as possible so that you're all having a great time. Mary, you do yours slightly differently.
Yeah, mine's different. So this is me conducting a ceremony at the Dalmeny Park, one of my favourite venues. And you can see that there's a lot of laughter in the ceremonies, but for me, the most important thing is that everything has to have heart, has to have meaning. I'm not a stand-up show. If you're looking for somebody who's a comedian, Paul's the better bet. But every one of our celebrants will have different things that are good about them. But for me, personally, my ceremonies are about every aspect in there is there for a reason. So if you have a symbolic gesture in there, it's because it has a reason you've got it there. It's not a ceremony filler. It's not like stick drinking in the quake in there because that will fill 5 minutes. It's about it having some meaning to you. So I also like to think out the box a bit more about the symbolic gestures. It's not just what you'd say, oh, we saw that at their wedding. Yeah, they did drinking from the quake at their wedding. For me, I'm about giving you different options, something that you've never thought of before, but we've seen them at lots and lots of different weddings, and that isn't weird, but is something that you're like, yes, that means something to me that other things wouldn't mean. So yeah, so we're all very different.
Yeah. So how we get that information from you guys, we like to get to know you as a couple. Now that sounds really weird, but not every humanist organisation will do the same. We invest time in our couples and we'll have face-to-face meetings. And we know you've got busy lives, so that may be over Zoom as well. So whatever's convenient to you, we like to actually get to know our couples so that when we tell your story, it's completely genuine. Now, something that happens at every one of my ceremonies, Mum or Gran will usually come up to me and say, wow, that was so personal, that was just them. Yeah. How long have you known them for? Yeah. Well, I just met them at the SEC wedding show last year. But it's the proof in the pudding that we actually invest time in our couples, and it's so organic and genuine.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's the biggest compliment anyone can give you is, if someone says, I love that you really got to know them, when really sometimes all we have been able to do during the pandemic is Zoom calls. But I think unless you really get to know someone, it shows in your ceremonies. If it feels like you're going through the motions, if it feels like a generic script, I really want everything to be, wow, that is so perfect for them, as if you've known them all your life.
So, as we mentioned, the central part of your ceremony is telling your love story, and we really build everything around that. So you, as a couple, get to pick all the components that you would like to include in your ceremony. We build that and bookend that around your love story. It could be things like a reading, for example, or how you're going to involve other people. So the more people you can involve, the more you're going to captivate them on the day, the focus that you give them. Not everyone has a role as a bridesmaid or a groomsman or a best man, so think outside the box. Who's going to be your ring bearer? Who's going to come forward and have a reading? If you didn't do that, who do you think would feel left out? And that's a great way of thinking about who you should include in the big day.
Yeah, I think there's no greater honour than being asked to do something at a wedding. It's a way to make your guests feel really, really special. This particular couple that I've been conducting their wedding here were actually from down south. I never met them except at her grandfather's funeral. But the really great thing is when I was conducting the funeral, I got to see a different side of them. And I think it's really nice to get to know the family, maybe have a wee call with mum and dad to put people's minds at ease. What is this humanism? Is there no religion in it? And it makes people feel a bit nervous sometimes, so just make sure you get what matters to people, and really make everyone feel comfortable, not just the bride and groom as well.
Okay, so we mentioned how we involve others. Readings is a great way of doing that, but also symbolic gestures is a fantastic way of doing that, and that's almost your showstopper moment in the ceremony. Your photographer would absolutely love to have a few of these in. As you can see there, that's myself conducting a hand fasting and a recent elopement that I've done. So we're going to have a demonstration of a hand fasting. I can see quite a few of my brides who are... There we go, give us a little wave. Would anyone like to come forward and have a little demonstration of a hand fasting, please? Oh, there you go, and you come on down. So ladies, you'll be glad to know that this is not legally binding anymore. However, in Scotland, hand fasting was legally binding up until as recent as 1939. So this is how we would conclude a marriage ceremony in Scotland. However, as you guys all now know, it's legal vows, which we'll come on to in a minute, and more often than not, exchanging of rings. So with a hand fasting, each cord represents the individual. One represents one half of the couple, and the other cord representing the other half. So this may be a tartan representing the family name, or it could be a fabric that matches the bride's dress. In this case, it's two cords that we're using. And by binding the hands together and tying the knot, this is sealing the sanctimony of marriage together. So a lot of people ask where the term tying the knot came from, and if you've ever wondered, well, now you know. And that's also very apt that we are representing today's talk from Tie the Knot, Scotland. So now we've got a round of applause for these two girls who have tied the knot. In your wedding ceremony, you would get to keep that as a keepsake. Are we not giving this away? Is that not a prize for today, Mary? No, she's keeping that. Okay. So I'll pass over to Mary and she'll talk the vows and the I do's.
So what you have to do in a marriage ceremony is you have to do legal vows, and it's literally 5 lines. It's a repeat after me job. But some people do prefer to do personal vows. I'd say for my couples, maybe about 50% of couples, not everyone wants to or have the pressure of doing that on the day. If you want to do personal vows, then I would be more than happy to help you to write those and send you starters for those, send you examples of ones I've done before. Some people on the day say, I can't do it. And there's many a time that I've read the personal vows on behalf of the other person. That works beautifully as well, that's no problem. And on my very first wedding I ever did, as I walked out, a couple in the crowd said, they didn't say I do. Does that mean that they're married? And I thought, God, people obviously associate the words I do with the legal aspect of a wedding nowadays. But actually, I do isn't legally included in a ceremony in Scotland. So I have started to use the words I do because I think there's a comfort in feeling you've said the words I do. So usually I do that for me in a ring ceremony exchange. So what I usually say is, do you give this ring as a token of your love and affection for Paul? And the bride would say, I do. So there's lots of ways we can incorporate it, and I know you do it in different ways, Paul.
Yeah, so I like to do mine either in the symbolic gesture of a hand fasten or during the personal vows to one another. You can say I do to one another. It's a great way of adding it in. Now, mostly the grooms have a little bit of pressure on doing personal vows because some of them will have a speech later on. And if I'm being honest, a lot of them leave it till last minute to write personal vows. So if you are thinking about doing personal vows, don't leave it too long. A good piece of advice is to use the notes app on your phone and start thinking about those little reasons you love one another. And that's a great way of, a few weeks before the ceremony, constructing those personal vows. And something I always hear from family members who a couple have done personal vows, they say that was their favourite part of the ceremony.
Yes.
So all the hard work that we do, putting it in, it goes to show that they're there to hear your voice, not just ours, okay? So if you're thinking about it, please try and do it. It's such a personal touch and it makes such a difference to your ceremony.
I agree with that, yep. Legal vow choices. So there's certain wording you can use for your legal vows. Personally, I like to stick with the same sort of wording because it's a part that I want to get right and I don't want to be stumbling over any words at the legal part of things. However, last week I did a ceremony where I said, repeat after me, I call upon these persons here present. And the girl said, I call upon these peasants here present. She was like, no, that's not right. Not peasants, okay? But certainly, I personally tend to stick with the same 5 lines because I want that to be perfect for you guys. That's the bit all eyes are on you. And it means I can tell my couples beforehand, this is what's going to be said. We can go over it on the phone if it helps, if we can go over it in person, if it makes you feel comfortable to know the exact wording that's going to be said and not be put on the spot on the day.
Yeah, it's an important part. You will see your script in advance. You will get to rehearse those parts with us. Obviously, there may be some surprises like the personal vows on the day that you don't know. However, the legal vows, I'm sure you've all seen the video of the guy online who says lawfully wedded wife and not lawfully wedded wife. So it can make a fun element if you have a videographer. However, you should have a few practices before the big day.
I actually just got married myself and my husband told me that I'm going to be saying awfully wedded wife. And, you know, as we got to that bit, I was giving him the sort of wide eye, don't even think about it. Like, you must say the right words. So the last thing we need to do in part of the legal wedding celebration is we need to declare you to be husband and wife, or wife and wife, husband and husband. And actually I had a couple last night who said they didn't want to be known as husband and wife. So there's wording we can use round about it that makes you feel comfortable. But the last thing, the declaration of vows, is the crescendo in a lot of ways of the celebration. And it's about everyone's waiting for, the hands are waiting to get clapped. Often our voices are drowned out because you're so desperate to get the words out there. But it is such an amazing moment to see that couple dancing back up the aisle, just having the time of their lives.
Yeah, as Mary said there, there's not one person who's sitting down. Everyone who's able to is standing on their feet, laughing, whooping, cheering, ready to get the party started. But it is fair to say you will walk down the aisle, but you'll be dancing back up it, and that's really where the party starts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so now over to you guys for any questions. Does anyone want to know anything? As I said, we've got weddings every day. You guys have got one forever. What do you want to know?
Stick your hand in the air and I'm ready with the roving mic if anyone wants to ask a question. Lady over here. Excuse me, sorry.
What's your favourite symbolic gesture to perform?
You go first.
My personal favourite is the hand fasting. I think the symbolism of the two people coming together as one and the term tying the knot is quintessentially what a wedding's all about. However, I would say some of my couple's favourites tend to be a drinking from the quake because they get a wee opportunity to put some whiskey in there or any drink of your choice, and it settles the nerves just before the vows. What about yourself, Mary?
For mine, I think probably because I'm much more about the heartfelt meaning behind things, I like to do a thing that first of all used to be called a ring warming ceremony. Probably needs a different name. It's the blessing of the rings. So I like to pass the rings round either a small number of the bridal party or everybody, but it's a fair size group, and everyone says one word that they wish for you to carry in your rings for the rest of your married life, and then the rings come back and then we do the ringing ceremony after that. So I just like the meaning behind it. It also means you get eye-to-eye contact with every one of your guests. You can turn round, face everyone, and there's always just a nice wee moment between every single person when you do that, and a great moment for the video to have every person in your crowd included in it.
Anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask Paul and Mary? Oh, someone over here. Oh, sorry, couldn't see you there.
The question nobody really wants to ask, but how much are yous?
You have to ask, you can't afford them.
Paul, are you a true Scotsman?
There is a very real reason why I'm not sitting on this stool, because you ladies are at eye level and you would find out that answer very quickly. So the total cost to book a Fuze Celebrant is £450. You can secure your date with a deposit of £112.50, and the rest is then payable closer to your wedding date. And that's really good because when you're paying the remainder of your balance, that's when we can start putting the legal forms in. So that's a nice prompt for us to help you guys with getting those legal forms done.
We've got time for one last question if anyone else has something they'd like to ask. No? All good? If you do have any other questions over the course of the day, obviously Fuze are going to be over on stand P58 all day, so I think it's another couple of colleagues that are on the stand for the rest of the
we've got another few amazing celebrants over there, so you can check out those two guys today.
If you go onto the Fuze Ceremonies website, then there's a little box that says who's available on your date. Put your date in, there'll be a drop-down menu for the celebration that you're looking for, and it will show you all the celebrants that are available in your area on your date, and you can check out all the different profiles of everyone. I would say arrange a few calls with people. We're getting used to being rejected sometimes, but you have to find the right person for you. So, we don't want to be standing doing a wedding ceremony for people who are not really looking for us as the type of people we are. We want to be working with people who are genuinely looking for what we offer. So go on, have a look at the different celebrants, set up some video calls, and get the right person for you.
Big thank you.
Thank you.
Hope you've enjoyed that. Big round of applause.